in the fund budget, and I just can't believe that you're telling me that having $2,500,000 back in our fund balance is a bad thing.
Mr. Chair, I think violating the Uniform Budget and Accounting Act is a bad thing. And we had a situation today, this concept of if the money's in the budget, just go ahead and hire and bring it to council. We had a motion on the floor today to terminate a guy that was hired 2 days ago. What expectation should we have to go through a hiring process when, if we don't think we should hire 10 police officers, just say that. Make the number 8 or make the number 6. But if we want to hire 10, according to the Uniform Budget and Accounting Act, we should budget for 10. If we don't budget for 10 and we hire them and then come to council at the next council meeting, you try and vote it down like you did earlier today. What are we supposed to do with that information? How are we supposed to recruit employees? How are we supposed to tell them whether or not they can start their first day on the job? Control how many we have based on the budget as outlined in the Uniform Budget and Accounting Act of 1968. And if we don't want to hire police officers or DPW or wherever these openings are, I know what you did in terms of looking at the payroll sheet. Some of the numbers are off. You have to amend your motion because some of the people in the call center we've already acknowledged have been hired, and the community development positions already been hired. Maybe a moot point relative to your overall theme, but I'm trying to stick to what we believe is the adherence to the Uniform Budget and Accounting Act. And if we don't want to hire the number of people, then we just don't put them in the budget. We let that money flow to general fund, or we spend it somewhere else. And I agree with Mr. Kocher relative to Mr. Ramick. It would be problematic if we could, in an uncontrolled fashion, take money that you all thought we were going to spend on people and spend it on something else. But if we wanted a piece of equipment or a vehicle or something that was greater than $2,000, we couldn't do that without your all approval.
I would just like to reiterate what Jason and Mr. Pizzurro said, that Michigan Uniform Budget and Accounting Act, just like it requires a good faith estimate of the revenues that are going to come into the city, also requires that the city put forth in there a good faith estimate of the expenditures that are going to be coming forth. So if the city is anticipating hiring anybody, whether it be police, fire, anybody additional, if that's anticipated and expected to occur in the next year, that has to be, under the law, put in the budget. You can't say we're going to hire, you can't have an anticipation of hiring people and not put it in the budget. That would be a violation of the Budgeting and Accounting Act. So just like you have to list your revenues, your expected sources of revenue, you also have to list your expected expenditures. And certainly those would be filling vacancies within the various departments. So if the city plans on hiring anybody to fill an existing vacancy or to add additional police and fire, those by law have to be put into the budget. I don't know how they did it in past years, whether they violated that act or not, but that's what the law states, yes.
And then, Mr. Chair?
From Great Inn.
Okay. So, for instance, in the police department, how many do we say that we plan on hiring this year? So, I mean, is the sky the limit for what you can plan? Can you say 50, because that's what you would like, but you know that can't happen? I don't understand
The plan is in the docs.
Sorry, through the chair. I can answer that question. We originally Chief doesn't like to give us to give out how many they're short, but we cut that in half because we thought that was to fulfill all the vacancies we didn't think was realistic, so we cut it in half. My goal would be to come back with a budget amendment for that other half that we took out. The more the better.
Through the chair, and just one more comment as well too. I will restate that again. There's other means of transparency instead of just taking out vacancies. To the Councilman Randall's point, policy is that interdepartment transfers can occur. It was a policy that was established based on making sure that departments can efficiently do their job because, you know, they don't want to wait 2 weeks or a month in order to get something. I have contractual services line that's going to be $2,000 under budget. I have a professional services line that's going to be $2,000 over budget if I do this, so I'm going to make a transfer to do that. That's the reason that policy is established. But, like anything else, policies can be reviewed, policies can be changed. So, again, my recommendation is to keep the vacancy in the budget so that we have a good idea of what the budget's going to present in next year's expenditures, but if a level of transparency is required, then we can look at those policies and procedures.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman Brandana.
So, in that thinking, then, we can put all the money in the departments, and then you can transfer it around to spend it on other things. Is that what you're telling me? Within that department?
To a certain extent, with approvals, if it's, again, non-related payroll, if it's over $2,000 contract, it has to be approved by council. So, you know, there is stipulations in that area as well.
So
And then
what's wrong with
and then
that?
with the contract, they are limited by the contract. Until 1917 TGM, they have contract limits that they can do.
So how would we know, like, for sure that you hired people in the call center? I mean, we were giving sheets that this is where you were at a date and time. Now, today you told me these are February's numbers. We were never told that until today. So I would assume that if we're doing a budget that's given to us on April 1st, I would just assume that it's real numbers. Unless from April 1st to April 26th, you hired a person, I get that. What's wrong with bringing a budget amendment to council and just adjusting the budget to accommodate for that? Instead of waiting till it's a year later at the end of the year, and then like, oh, look, you spent this much money on this person.
Yeah, no, Chair, my comment still stands. I understand the point, but from a budgeting point of view is, you know, if you are going to plan on spending the $2.5 million, you should put it in the budget. Regardless of the vacancies or not, that's my interpretation, my opinion, because it gives the outsiders, like the grant personnel, bond agencies, it gives them a lot more information on, okay, so the city of Taylor is budgeting this, but if they're budgeting this at a $2.5 million access, and all of a sudden it goes down to $100,000, they're going to say why, and we have to question that. And if the response is because we didn't budget all the vacancies, again, I just never had that type of response for that type of budget. So, again, I do understand the points that were brought up during this conversation. I do understand them. I'm just stating my concerns from the budget point